A lesson on algebra graphs or graphs or however you want to say it. I'm going to use graphs. You'll be asked to plot the points of the general rule or number pattern onto a set of axes. Your answer will look something similar to this. Now note, you only plot the dots, no lines between the dots. Here's an example, and it's an example you've seen before, so we've already worked out the general rule, and there it is. And you're told on the axes below, plot the first 4 points of the rule. So we look at the table. We look for the first term. Now notice n is on the horizontal axis, and m is on the vertical axis. So the horizontal axis is sometimes called the x-axis, and the vertical is called the y-axis. So look for 1 on the horizontal axis, and that's there, and the 5 will be on the other axis. And where those points cross, that's where you draw your dot. Then we go to the second point. So 2 is on the horizontal, 9 is on the vertical, and draw your dot. And carry on until you've drawn all the dots. So 3, 13 will be 3 on the horizontal, 13 on the vertical, and draw your dot. And the next one you've got 4 and 17, so 4 horizontal, 17 vertical, and draw your dot. So that's what it looks like. No line in between, just 4 dots. Now things to note. This is a linear pattern because the points or dots of the graph of this pattern form a straight line. If you look at them, there's the straight line. Now don't draw a line between them, just look at them and see if they form a straight line. So that's called linear. The other thing to note is that you can give values to each of these points. They're called coordinates, or the values of the axes. And you always give the x value first. So in the first one, it's 1 and 5, and it's written like that, between brackets with a comma. See, 1 on the x-axis and 5 on the y-axis. So the next one will be 2 and 9. Can you guess what the third one will be? 3 and 13. And the fourth one, in between brackets, 4, 17. Now we'll use that later in our description of drawing a graph. In the second example, again, you've seen this one and you've worked out the general rule which is given to you there, and you've got to plot the 4 points. So let's use that extra information we have now. We want to draw the point 1, 3. So 1 on the x and 3 on the y, and you draw your dot. The next point is 2, 5. So 2 on the horizontal and 5 on the vertical, and there's your point. Third one is 3, 7. So 3 and 7, and draw your dot. And the last one is the point 4, 9. So 4 on the horizontal and 9 on the vertical, and there's your dot. And the question will be, is this rule linear? And the answer is most definitely yes. The points form a straight line. Now if you're asked to describe how to draw a graph to show the general rule, giving enough detail so that someone else could follow the instruction and draw the graph correctly, how would you do that? Well, let's look at an example. Let's say you were asked to draw a graph to show the general rule of s equals 3 times b plus 4. And s is the sweets and b is the bag number, and there's the table you have to use. Well, let's draw it. You know how to draw it, and it'll look something like this. Now here are the instructions I'd give. Firstly, use grid paper. Secondly, write S for sweets on the vertical axis and number the lines from 0 at the bottom to 16 at the top. Then number 3, write B for bags on the horizontal axis and number the lines from 0 on the far left to 4. Then plot the points 1, 7, 2, 10, 3, 13, and 4, 16. And I'd leave it at that. I'm assuming the person has a little understanding about drawing graphs and about points. Time for that checkpoint, which is called Graphs Checkpoint. Please make sure you complete it before the next lesson.